back to another EDH deck tech. My name is Scott, and I've got my last one for Dominaria United, I think. So a nice, exciting one. Sheoldred the Apocalypse, very popular, very popular. People have been liking it. People have not been liking to play against it in some regards. I think it's a powerful commander. Interesting. I found it quite difficult to build, or probably more accurate, quite difficult to tweak. Or make choices. Really, I found that I started with my season deck list, which was pretty much have my opponents draw as much as they can and then discard those draw. In this regard, I didn't necessarily want to go down that same route. I think obviously your opponent's drawing cards is still pretty good, so it's got a bit of that, but rather than discard, I'm trying to pay off that life gain that I'm getting from my own draws, as well as some extra draws for myself. So that's really the route I went down with. I think you can go, either way. I've seen some lists where, it is pretty much a season copy where it's everyone drawing and everyone discarding. But, and then the other way is, life gain and trying to pay off that. So I did go with that. Sheoldred has quite a few combos in there, so it has ended up being a bit of a combo deck. I will kind of stipulate that I didn't put any combos in that would just straight out win the game themselves, although I've got many of the pieces that would support that kind of functionality. So I think you only need to make maybe a couple changes and you could have a couple more infinite combos in there. And I'll go through them as I get to them. But yeah, maybe just to make that a bit clear, I'll go through the combos a bit, maybe about halfway through. So let's just get to the deck. I'm excited. I really have enjoyed playing this. So Sheoldred. So first up, my opponent's drawing. So Howling Mind. The cheapest of this kind of effect, we want our opponents to draw so that they can each, start taking two. And we're kind of, they're taking two, so each of them, and then I'm gaining two, so it's an 8 life swing, which is great. That's what we want. So each player, they're going to draw an additional card. If it's untapped, but I don't really have ways to untap, tap, whatever. So essentially, everyone draws an extra card. Dark deal. So this is the only wheel in black other than ones that are artifacts like Memory Jar, which is reserve list and I don't have. But essentially, everyone's going to discard and everyone's going to draw. So it's going to be lots of Sheoldred triggers. Horn of Greed. Whenever a player plays a land, that player draws a card, right? You want to be playing your lands each turn. You want to draw a card. Master of the Feast, so all your opponents will draw a card on your upkeep. So essentially, they're all going to lose 6 life, then you're going to draw, you're going to gain that 2 life, right? This last little 5/5 beater. Temple Bell, each player draws a card. The nice one is you can tap this, so at the end of your opponent just before you tap it, you draw the card, or everyone draws a card. So, they are unlikely to use it, and at least you get access to it straight up. Font of Mythos, lots of card draw. So everyone draws an additional 2 cards. So heaps and heaps of cards. Rankle Master of Pranks, nice utility. It's a bit of a pet card for me as well. Everyone discards. Trying to keep their hand sizes okay, but everyone really draws a card and loses a life, and you can sacrifice creatures. Don't really have a lot of sacrifice fodder for this kind of style, so it's really about just making sure that maybe each player can discard a card and draw a card and lose a life. So kind of serving as that Sheoldred kind of thing. Teferi's Puzzle Box, great. So at the beginning of each player's draw step, so you draw as part of your state bait action, and then you put them on the bottom of your library and you draw that many cards, right? So you're never down cards, but the fact is they are then drawing those new cards and Sheoldred is seeing those, so very synergistic. And then Cezanne, Perverter of Truth. This was this deck kind of now switched over and changed a bit, but at the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player loses 2 life and draws 2 cards. So, you know, kind of another mini Sheoldred. I always quite like this one. This one's nice. Lots of fun, that deck. Eldritch Pact. So I do have to apologize to Watsy. When I saw this card, I was like, this card is rubbish. I just don't understand why they would make this kind of card. And now I see, okay, these are kind of plans for future. And you know that in your head that's what they're there for. But you know, in the future, you are not necessarily looking for it. But I had this, and I was like, oh wow, okay, this really works with Sheoldred. So it is target player. So I was thinking about it when I was first kind of putting my draft for this deck. That I was like, okay, I'm not really feeling my graveyard. It's not really the point of this deck, so I'm not really going to be drawing a lot. But it is target player, so it can be against opponents who are filling up their graveyard and then subsequently losing life because they're drawing. Right? So it's for those kind of decks. 7 is quite a lot still. Okay, so the payoffs. So Blood Chief Ascension. So the beginning of each end step, if an opponent loses 2 life, so with Sheoldred, essentially this will trigger across the whole table. Once it has that many 3 or more counters on it, when something goes to the graveyard, that player loses 2 life and you gain 2 life, right? So it's another Sheoldred. And that's any card, so that's great. But yeah, it's just kind of there to help start pushing people's life totals further and further down, right? Because we're only pinging people for 2. And Sheoldred is such an important part of the strategy that we want to kind of have some support for that. So Blood Chief Ascension, really, really great. Underworld Dreams, whenever an opponent draws a card, they deal 1 damage to that player. So another one where it's, you know, it's 50% worse, but still decent. Fate Unraveler, same thing. Opponent draws a card, but it's on a creature. Obnixilis, same thing, but on a planeswalker, so you know, a bit more susceptible to, you know, creatures attacking it. But it can come down with destroying a target creature, and that controller draws 2 cards. So you know, if something comes down, we can destroy it. They can draw 2 cards, right? So quite nice. Wound Reflection. If you've seen any of my videos before, you know that I love this card and I want any excuse to put it in my decks. It really starts to end games, especially when we're doing 2 damage here, we're doing 1 damage there. You know, we need to start pushing that damage further and further. Wound Reflection, really, really great. Starts to end games. You know, your opponents are attacking each other. They're going to start losing life, and of course, it doesn't affect you, which is great. Price of Knowledge, another interesting one. This one was kind of carryover from a Citadel deck. So players have no maximum hand size, so they can keep drawing. And the beginning of each opponent's upkeep, so only opponents deal damage equal to their hand size. So we're filling up their cards. They are then taking that damage. So, you know, they're taking that 4 to 7 damage per turn. You know, realistically, they're going to be using some of those cards you're giving you. So, you know, 4 or 5 damage per turn, decent. This is probably the most expensive. Probably the first card I would do for some of those combos that I was alluding to before. Okay, something your own draw. So David Pack, I say own draw, but it is target player. So it could be somebody else if you have enough mana. We are playing Cabal Coffers, so you know that could be something realistic where we can hit somebody for 10, 15, something like that. So it's nice, but whatever life you lost, you're gonna then gain twice as much, right? So it doesn't really matter how much life you lose, it's just about how much mana you have. So decent. Plus it's a X spell, so you can do it anytime. Night's Whisper. Draw 2 cards, lose 2 life, then gain 4 life. Really, really nice. Sign of Blood. This is target player, so it is your opponent draws 2, they lose 6. Okay, sure. You know, it's better than Lightning Strike. So nice, but it is also for yourself. Black Market Connections. This one's been sometimes I go back and forth about black market connections because the treasure token's always great, but sometimes I don't have a deck that really supports the draw and losing 2, because then I'm losing 3 each turn. It starts to get a lot, and then the shapeshifter I barely ever use. But in this deck, it kind of works, right? So you draw a card, you lose 2 life, you gain your 2 life, so you really are only spending 4 life for a treasure and a shapeshifter token. All right, seems all right. And so you get full utility out of this card. So black market connections I think is just great generally, and it's even better in this one. For X Arena, just simple. On your upkeep, you lose a life, draw a card, gain 2 life with Sheoldred. Read the bones, draw 2, gain 4, lose 2, scry 2. Decent draw. Greed's an interesting one. I kind of went back and forth on this one. I was like, okay, 4 mana and then 1 mana and 2 life, but then you get that 2 life, right? So it's just 1 black mana for a card. Seems decent. Yeah, it seems decent. But I was a bit concerned about the 4 mana up front, especially when Sheoldred is also 4 mana. So it's a bit more of a late game. I found it, it was quite nice in the late game where I just needed to start drawing some cards. So it has been quite nice. Necropotence. Interesting one. So instant 5 mana, right? But it must be done on your end step. So you can pay any amount of X, and the X being your life. You'll draw that many cards. You'll gain twice that much life. So the life loss doesn't really matter. You just want to kind of just draw those cards. And then you have to discard those cards, right? So in this case, that's where that Eldritch Pact can kind of come in, where you might have enough life to pay. But if they remove Sheoldred at resolution of this, that's going to be a problem, right? So you cast this, put this on the stack, they destroy Sheoldred, you've already paid your X. So, don't necessarily play it into some open mana, but very, very powerful card. Okay, you want the freest of freest cards in this deck, then Street Wraith is it. If you want, 98 cards in your commander deck, Soul Ring and Street Wraith is pretty much it, right? So it's cycling, you pay 2, but you're going to gain 2, right? So it's just cycling for free. Really, really great. Makes my 99 deck into a 98 deck. Okay, so payoffs for the Lifegain. So I've got veto in here. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses that much life. So you're going to gain 2, and target opponent is going to lose 2, right? So that's where it synergizes. You can give creatures lifelink, not too relevant, also a bit expensive. It's really just to be that additional Sanguine Bond, because I have Sanguine Bond right after. Whenever you gain life, target opponent loses life, right? So this one's 5 mana, it's an enchantment. Nice, great. It synergizes with Sheoldred. Now, if you want to make a cut to the deck and you want to put in Exquisite Blood to combo off, by all means, would work perfectly, right? Whenever your opponents lose life, you gain that life, and then when you gain that life, your opponents lose that life, right? But even then, it's still synergistic with Sheoldred, even if you just wanted to play Exquisite Blood over this one. I did opt for the one that does damage, where Exquisite Blood is when your opponents lose life, so they'll lose that 2 life, and you'll gain 2 life. But I opted for the one that does damage, but you could easily put that in, and it's a great combo. And then Witch of the Moors, not playing too many creatures, but it is a bit of removal, it is a bit of recursion, it does have Death Touch, it's actually quite nice, and all you have to do is to have gained life, which, hopefully you have a draw step, should be easy enough. And then Bolus is Citadel. Plenty of life gain. This one's not draw, but you have enough life that you can play around with just taking stuff off the top of your library, right? So very, very powerful, and a great way to kind of go through your deck. Okay, I'm just going to put the deck aside because I've just got combos now. So I just want to take some time to kind of just discuss some of these combos. Just to go through so that it's kind of clear understanding, okay, how did these work, right? So Lich's Mastery, probably the most popular one for Sheoldred. So you play this, you cannot lose the game. Whenever you gain life, you draw that many cards. Whenever you lose life, you essentially exile a permanent or something from your graveyard, hand, whatever. When it leaves the battlefield, you lose the game, right? So the important part and the difference between this and other Lich type effects is this one specifically says you cannot lose the game. So what happens is you're going to play this, you're going to draw with Sheoldred out, you're going to gain 2 life. Whenever you gain life, you draw that many cards, right? So you draw 2 cards, which means you gain life with Sheoldred, which means you draw. So on and so forth, and you're going to draw your deck. The important part of this is you can't lose the game. So once you draw your deck, you cannot lose. So you just have all your cards in your hand, right? So from that, there are lots of ways to win, right? So it's really up to you. So Aether Flux Reservoir, you've gained that life, so you can start pinging people. Now you might not have, depending on how many cards you've drawn, you may have enough life, you may not have enough life to kill everyone. Hopefully by, you know, the time where it's relevant, you don't have that many cards, some opponents have already gone, right? So, you know, you have 100 cards in your deck, you would have had some in your hand by the time Sheoldred, maybe you have 80, right? You have 80 cards in your deck, 160, you should be able to kill everyone, right? If you have 60 cards, hopefully someone's gone already, or, you know, low enough life for some other reason. But you can really just hold your opponents, you know, by barrel or gun, essentially, right? So that's that. The other one is you have all your cards in your hand. So Scourge Familiar, so you can discard a card to add black. From there, you can cast Sickening Dreams. So you can, with this, you have to discard X cards. So if you have 80 cards in your deck, you can discard 40 cards, and each player and each creature will lose 40 life. But you've gained so much life from Sheoldred that it doesn't really matter. Torment of Hellfire is your other one with Scourge Familiar, because you're discarding cards for X, so you know you're going to pay them into your Torment of Hellfire X spell. So Aether Flux Reservoir, Scourge Familiar with either Sickening Dreams or Torment of Hellfire go great with Lich's Mastery. So that's what happens when you have your hand, your deck in your hand. The other one is Psychosis Crawler. So whenever you draw a card, each opponent loses life. So this will also work with Lich's Mastery, obviously, because you're drawing cards. Each opponent's going to lose life. But it does also work with Peer into the Abyss. So Peer into the Abyss is target player draws cards equal to half their number of cards in their library and loses half their life, right? So you're going to draw, say you have, you know, your 70 cards in your deck, you're going to draw 35, or your opponent's going to lose 1 life, so they're going to lose 35. But you know, who cares about your life, right? So that's another one. This one is also target player, so if you want to just straight off just target one person and get that person out of the game, you can do so, because they're going to draw their 35 cards and Sheoldred's going to do, you know, 70 damage to them. They're going to lose 70 life. So that's also the alternative. So Peer into the Abyss, very good. The other one is Crick. So Crick with Bolus, Broker of Blood. So Crick essentially, you know, turns your black mana into Phyrexian black mana. So with Bolus, the important part is you lose life, you draw that many cards. So you're going to pay your black with your Phyrexian mana and pay 2 life. So you're going to pay 4 life to draw essentially 4 cards, right? So you're going to put this on the stack, you're going to put your Sheoldred triggers on the stack, you're going to gain that life, you're going to draw that many cards, and you're just going to keep going, right, until you have your deck in your hand. And then, of course, you can go with your Peer into the Abyss, your Scourge Familiar, Torment of Hellfire, all of those, right? So you have lots of ways to win with that. So that's the combo side. I went for combos that are drawing my library, because that's what Sheoldred wants to do, but things like Exquisite Blood, I have Aether Flux Reservoir and Bolus Citadel, so you can add in those Sensei's Divining Top. they would also be two combos that could easily be added in here. You can just swap out, you know, things like Price of Knowledge or something expensive, and, you know, it would be great, and you would add two more combos to your deck, right? So it's quite combo tactic. I did opt for ones that don't necessarily win the game straight away, but just that draw my library. Okay, back to the rest of the deck. Protection. So Sheoldred dies a lot. If I could work out maybe a stronger protection package, I might also try to opt for that once I kind of continue on with this deck. So Kaya's Ghost Form, just nice and cheap. It essentially gets around for exile or it dies, so just allows for a bit of extra protection, which is nice because I want Sheoldred, right? Sheoldred, pretty much the deck flops without Sheoldred. Malachite Rebirth, it's a land on the other side. It's pretty good, but it will come back. Lightning Greaves for a bit of Shroud. I'm not really targeting Sheoldred, so Shroud's fine. And then Swiftwood Boots for a bit of Hexproof. So the protection. Mono Black, not necessarily known for its protection. I know that there are other things that I can add in, but they're all a bit situational. So I tried to opt in for all in on these combos and Lifegain. But I think as I play the deck and depending on the meta, you know, if I find people have got a lot of removal, I might opt for more. Talk about removal. My removal. Sorter Pack, nice, cheap. I want to play Sheoldred as soon as possible, so I kind of want to go with my protections down. So I found the 0 mana spells actually decent. It is non-black, of course, but it's free. Defile, playing a lot of swamps, get around is indestructible, nice and cheap. Feed the Swarm, gets rid of enchantments, which is nice. Soul Shatter, it's great. Usually the thing that I want to get rid of is the highest mana value, so that's always been quite nice. Baleful Mastery, interesting one. So in this one, we always want to pay the student cost, so that one of our opponents is going to draw, they're going to lose two, right? And we're going to exile target creature or planeswalker, pretty good. Deadly Rollick, always want Sheoldred out, so having this be free is quite easily done. Hagra Mauling, it's a land on the other side. It's a bad murder, but it's a land. Stuff Out, another one that's non-black, but it is free, and we have a lot of life, so it's not really a problem for us. And then Curtain's Call becomes cheap because of Undaunted, but do note that you do have to have two legal targets for it to resolve. Toxic Deluge, board wipes, -X, we have a lot of life, so that's fine. Gets around indestructible. Damnation, nice and cheap, destroys all creatures, it can't be regenerated. Not too relevant, but okay. Mutilate, another one, we have a lot of swamps. It gets around indestructible, of course. Ramp, Dark Ritual, nice and cheap, tries to get Sheoldred out on turn 2. Wayfarer's Bauble, gets those swamps out. Arcane Signet, nice and cheap and simple. Felwar Stone, all these 2 mana rocks. Jet Medallion, we have a lot of black spells in this deck. Mind Stone can draw us a card, which is nice, get that life. Thought Vessel, good for maximum hand size, especially when we got things like a Horn of Greed out and those kind of type effects. Crypt Gas has Extort, so getting that life gain's nice, but it's really there just to double our swamps. Solemn Simulacrum, get those swamps out, and also draw a card. And then the kind of Revenant, double those swamps. Okay, lands. So a few different lands than I probably normally play. So Pachuca Bog, great for graveyard hate. Cabal Coffers, we play a lot of swamps, great for ramp. Cabal Stronghold, again, we're playing a lot of basic swamps, so it can be quite nice later in the game. Castle Lochthwain, draws us a card. See the theme? Not too fussed about the life loss, but it does draw us a card. Guy Reach Sanitarium, so each player discards a card, and then draws a card. Well, draws a card, then discards a card. So it's still quite nice. Miko Koro, Center of the Sea. I can never say that one. Just same thing. Everyone draws a card, but in this case they don't discard. But we want everyone to be drawing cards, so it's great. Mirrored Landscape, get those swamps out. nick those Shrine to Nicks. Really nice. I found Devotion to be easy enough to get in this deck. Sheoldred has 2 pips itself, so you just need something else, and then you're starting to get positive, so it's quite good. Reliquary Tower, no maximum hand size, so we are drawing a lot, especially with things like Necropotence and stuff like that. It's quite nice. Strip Mind. I always play a land destruction land in my deck. This could be Wasteland, Ghost Quarter, Tectonic Edge, something like that. Somebody has their own Cabal Coffers, Maze of Ith, things like that. It's quite nice to get rid of. Takanuma Abandoned Mire. Just a nice little recursion. It comes in untapped. The mill's not too important, but maybe Commander tax is getting too much. We can just put Sheoldred in the graveyard and then get it back for 4 mana. Urborg Tomb of Yawgmoth, turn all our lands into swamps for Mutilate, for Defile, for Cabal Coffers. War Room, drawing a card, losing 1 life, but we're going to gain 2 life, so that's fine. And then the rest of it is swamps. 22. So, that is Sheoldred. I think as this deck evolves, I will be putting in more protection. I just need to try and find what that kind of suite looks like. Whether that's more like an Imp's Mischief or something like that, I'm not too sure. A lot of fun. I think it's already having a bit of a stigma around it, I think, because, it's quite combo-tastic. And it does just generically good stuff. I think Sheoldred can fit in a lot of other decks as well. So I think, people are going to know what you're up to. And I only think politics can go so far with, hey, I'm letting you guys draw cards. Really, I think, yeah, it's been a fun ride, that's for sure. Not sure how long that ride will last. Anyway, yeah, it's been good fun. I've been enjoying the deck. Death Touch is not relevant. So yeah, cool. All right, well, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy.